Right, we resume our meeting on page 284, the Community Activity Report. And Colin.
Thank you, Worship. And following on from what we did last time, each activity managers will report their section report. So we'll start off with Tiffany Rawlings, our Library and Archive Manager.
Thank you. If you could, when you go to the microphone, I know I'm probably telling you to suck you, but if you could talk right into the microphone, thank you.
Will do. Kia ora, I'm Tiffany Rawlings. I'm the Library and Archive Manager. I'll take my portion of the report as read, and I just want to highlight a couple of the things that we've done over the last month and what's coming up. So we did receive our Community Impact Grant from the Masterton Trust Lands Trust, and I just wanted to publicly thank them for their continued support of what we do in the library. Their funding allows us to do a lot of extra things that we normally wouldn't be able to put on and buy extra books for our community. Last month, we launched our first poetry competition in collaborations with Headley's Books, Fraser Books, and the family of Jan Gernston. So most of you would probably know her from her time on council. So in memory of her, her family asked us to do a poetry competition. So that will be running alongside Yarns and Barns every 2 years, and that runs through the end of next week. And then the people who win that competition will be able to speak at Yarns and Barns and recite their poetry. This year we have Alan Rickman to judge it, a renowned poet here in New Zealand. Some of our upcoming events that we have, next Friday starts our first monthly open house at the archive. So the last Friday of every month at 3:30 we'll be opening up the archive for people to come and do a tour of it and to learn more about what goes on in that facility. You don't need to book, you can just show up and get a tour of the facility. We also have our school holiday program coming up. This year is our every other year participation in the Beyond the Page Festival. That festival is fully funded by the grant that we received from Trustlands Trust, and it's a festival that kind of goes beyond the page, thus its name, and features non-traditional ways of storytelling. So this year we have 9 groups coming in. So these include the New Zealand Ballet, the Wellington Orchestra. We have a toy maker coming in. So all these events are free to attend for children in the community. And then we also have our participation that we do with Yarns and Barns. So we collaborate with them and help them put on their Yarns and Barns Festival of Reading. This year we're supporting Romata Small to come in and do her talk on her book, Understanding the Treaty. So that's a free lunchtime session for anybody to attend. And she'll also be in the library that morning putting on a event for children in the community. So that's all I wanted to kind of touch base on. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Tiffany?
All right, I'll turn it over to Claire then.
So the recommendation is that we receive the report. Anybody else? Sorry.
We've got 3 other people.
Oh, you got 3 other people.
Yeah, so I'll have Claire from Customer Services.
We haven't quite stripped the well-being out.
Have we actually done anything?
Morena tātou. So, my short portion of the report, I'll take that as being read. Just a couple of things over the last month, 6-8 weeks. We've had over 800 calls into over 800 service requests raised into our system, generated from just normal customer inquiries about issues out there in the community. Our call centre has taken over 1,300 calls in the time frame, and it's with 2 to 3 people being on the phones over that time. So it's been really nice and steady. So our completion rate has gone up to 94%. I think the last time I spoke it was sitting around 92, so that's great. We also received quite a few, I say about 5 or 6, which is a lot of compliments, not complaints, over the time, which is great because we go several months with nothing at all. So it's been nice over the last month to see that there's a few compliments coming in, which we listed in our report. So if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any questions for Claire? It's like you're clear too, Claire. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Mrs. Kelsey. Kelsey.
Kia ora, thanks Claire. So I'll take the community development section as read as well. There were a few things I'd like to highlight in our section. So the first one was welcoming week. So we had a really successful welcoming week from the 6th to the 15th of September. We had the Cultural Festival on the 7th. We had a really great turn-up, about maybe 3 or 4 times more what we had in Park Street last year. A lot of compliments around the change of location and being in the green space, so that's awesome. Plenty of good kai and some amazing performances. I'd also like to touch on engagement continues for the Youth Hub. So on Monday we met with iwi to discuss ways in which they could be involved. We have got a meeting with a number of youth agencies tomorrow in this very room to basically have a very similar conversation. Over the school holidays we've got some engagement sessions planned with youth down at the skate park, as well as a number of other things going alongside that as well. And just lastly, I would like to highlight our first Disability Advisory Group meeting last month. So a really good turnout. We spent a lot of time getting to know one another and having some really rich conversations. We spoke about some of the key challenges they're experiencing as a community, and we plan to meet again next month. I will take questions.
Any questions for Kelsey?
3 from 3.
3 from 3, Kelsey. Oh, you're right. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Kia ora.
Right, now somebody prepared to move. Oh, Terry.
Kia ora again, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Again, like the others, I'll take the report as read and I'll just highlight a few things. But before I do, I'll just actually introduce you to Gordon, our newest team member. So he is the Animal and Bylaws...
You have to go and stand up the top, Gordon, so we can all look at you.
We promised him I wouldn't need to. So Gordon's the Animal and Bylaws team leader. So he comes from us from MPI, and then previous to that 27 years in police. So Gordon will be looking after the Animal and Bylaws team, which so covers parking, dog control, a lot of bylaws, and then there's things, so things like overhanging trees, accumulation on properties and things like that. Okay. So, welcome, Gordon. Yeah, so he's replacing Jill. Yeah.
Gordon, now, hang on a second. I'm not going to let you get away with that. You can give us a wee bit about your background, Gordon. So the guys get...
Sorry, Gordon.
It's okay. Right. I joined the police in 1991. So originally I'm from Manawatu. I started my police career in the Manawatu. I served across quite a bit of New Zealand, principally North Island, Wellington, Auckland, South Auckland, both Central Auckland. Worked in the CID as an investigator. Managed to get to the point where I held the rank of inspector at one point, working in the Professional Standards Unit in Wellington, dealing with aberrant police officers. And my last job here was Prevention Manager at Masterton Police Station. I worked with Oz, and I worked with Matt Smith, who works here as well, previously as well. Went to MPI 5 years ago, where I worked in audit risk and evaluation, but it was principally around internal integrity, investigating internal frauds, deaths and corruptions. So that's pretty much a quick snapshot of me. Been here at Warwick for 20 years.
Welcome, Gordon. I think we'll see more of you. Thank you.
Yeah, we're a bit lucky.
So, Terry, are you asking for questions now? Or?
No, well, I'll just
Or you
give
still
you some...
going?
I'm still going.
You're still going?
Yeah. So probably the highlights in this report are about the increase to the parking infringements, which has been actually a really long time coming. Probably the most significant is the disability car parking, because people flouting those rules really need to consider whether it's worth it with these infringement fines now. It will help us cost recover as well, because previously, like a $12 ticket is not really enough for overstaying, writing the ticket and following up. So hopefully that will help us make sure that we can cover our costs, come out even on at least for providing that service. I also want to highlight Wagging Trails and what a successful event that was. We had over 100 people at our launch of that. We had really good positive feedback, and the team really enjoy engaging with our good dog owners, our responsible, fantastic dog owners. So that we intend to make it bigger and better next year. And the other thing that I'll highlight is probably the objections to our club licences as well, highlighting that is not only a workload increase for us as licensing inspectors, but also for our democracy team if they're needing to go to hearing as well. And we expect that we will be having more of these objections over the coming months as well. Right, now I'm ready for question.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Jerry, thanks for your report. Excellent stuff. Just on the parking infringement, a while back we talked about the ability of us to maybe issue tickets for overdue warrants, and there was one and registrations. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that part of it, or we have to go through a proper bylaw process to be able to do that?
So we don't need to go through a bylaw process. We've got to go through a process to make sure that we can implement it on our ticketing processes. So there will be a bit of work for us to do, but we hope that it'll be in place before the end of the year.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Terry? Thank you, Terry. Corin, is that where it finishes?
That is the finish of the community.
Somebody prepared to move that we receive the report from the community activity. Move Councillor Lennox and Councillor Holmes. Any further discussion?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, thank you.
I just think, given the government's current view of wellbeing initiatives, I applaud our council staff for the work that they carry out in this space, Corin, and your team. And I ask councillors to think of what would our community look like without, there was 11 pages of wonderful reports from the team, what would our community look like without these services, initiatives and events that happen within our town? And also, what negative impact or how would it look if we were to strip those away from our community? So just remember that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox. I would applaud it, I'm not allowed to. Councillor Holmes?
I'd like to have a bit of a joke with my colleague here. I just want to say, I often ring the centre, the call centre, and I just want to say how good you are at that call centre. I rang last Friday about 2 little jobs, and people rang me on Monday to say they'd been completed, and I thought that was very good. So compliments for me.
Thank you very much.
So that's 5.
I just agree with Councillor Lennox. What would our community be like without our community development team and environmental services and the people that support that part of council? But I'd just like to mention 4 things, not in any particular order, but 4 things I'd like to recognise. One was the cultural festival. That was such a buzz. That was awesome. The other one is I think it's a great initiative to have the open house at the archives, because I don't think a lot of people get the archives, and I think it's a terrific initiative. The opening of the dog park, that was fun, and good to see a collaboration, community-led, council-supported initiative, and also, who else did we have? Oh, and the other thing I'm excited about is we started on the animal shelter. Yeah. And somebody stopped me in the supermarket, as they often do, because my bananas face the wrong way. And said they'd contacted the call centre, and they couldn't believe how friendly and helpful the call centre was, and they actually popped round later in the day to say thanks. And normally people stop you in the supermarket to moan.
So that was bananas.
Yeah.
Does the call centre have bananas?
No, but you should get some bananas in your trolley for your trolley. Thank you.
Great work. Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Lena.
Yeah, like Councillor Lennox, there's some great stuff there happening in the wellbeing space. So, Corin and your team, you're well done. I'm not sure what your purpose of your comments were, Councillor Lennox, and I suspect for us assume that there was some suggestion that a number of councillors might be wanting to do away with the wellbeing space. I would just like to add to that, we have a responsibility to our community to decide what's most important with a very fixed budget. It's not an easy job, and it might mean looking at aspects of wellbeing or aspects of construction compared to water or compared to roading. So, yes, compliment the wellbeing team. It's not an easy job on council in making those tough decisions, and we do need to consider our community when we make those decisions and the impact on our community of rising rates. So, yeah, just to put that comment into a bit of a balance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lena. Any further? Just in the point, I was actually mentioning this in my mayor's report, but I'll do it now. I also want to particularly thank everybody that's involved in our community development. I see it every day, and I get comments every day from people about how great the council's going in that area. And at the cultural festival, I was just absolutely staggered at the number of people who come up and said to us, you know, you're doing great, the council's working well, and just keep going on what you're doing. And so it's just so satisfying to, and I've got that a lot this time over the last few months in my mayoral meetings I have every day, where people are actually coming in and saying to us and giving us a lot of really, really good, strong comments about going ahead with our planning. And so I certainly take on board what Tom says, but I think the community development in some ways leads the way in terms of community spirit. And if community development's working well, then people are really happy with how things are progressing. So that's just a point I'd like to make. I think it's we just do so well in community development. It's really exciting. So I'd just like to thank the staff that are involved in that, all of you, the dog control, everything. You're doing a great job. So we've got a motion to move, and we moved and seconded. All in favour of the update? Say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carry, thank you. 296, the infrastructure and assets report. Matt, we may not be so excited about this.
I'm excited. I'm actually going to have the team present following Corin's model, which seemed to be successful. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce our new Three Waters manager, Operations and Transition Manager. Come on up, Steve. So really pleased to have Steve Watt join the team. So Steve started last week. And Steve has an extensive background in water and operations, including treatment. I might let you say a few words about yourself, if you like, Steve.
Yeah, Morena, called Steve Tokoingawa. I've come from, been 40 years in engineering, 30 of those years in water supply, and probably the last 10 years reticulated waste. And 15 years in management. So I was responsible for Lower Hutt and Upper Hutt City Councils and South Wairarapa RETIC teams and maintenance plans and projects, and the bulk water regionally for the bulk water network as well. So really looking forward to working, and I think there's some good things going to be happening here, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve, and welcome.
Welcome.
So were you with Wellington Water?
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Yeah, I was regional council, and then we merged in, well, we were taken over by Wellington Water, or Wellington Water was created, yeah. So 10 years with Wellington Water, yes.
It'll be interesting conversations, especially in the next few weeks, I suspect, with you.
Thank you so much, Steve, and welcome. Okay, who's doing the Phil?
Good morning, councillors, and hello again. We worship. We haven't choreographed this quite as slickly as our friends and community have done, so we'll see how we go. But I think I'm fronting it, and then Kane and Oz will speak to their portions as we go through as well. So I'll move that I'll ask that the report be taken as read, and just highlight a couple of bits and pieces, in particular from the project space, if I may. We've making some pretty good progress here at the moment. As was mentioned before, the ground's been broken for the animal shelter. That work's progressing. Planning to have that completed by October next year. The Down at the youth hub, the toilets have been craned into place. They went in last Friday, and I understand the new Fab Lab building should be on the back of a truck this evening and then put on the ground tomorrow, is at the moment, pending any dramas or any other issues with that. The other major project we're working with at the moment is the implementation of some new software to assist us with compliance and reporting, especially with the drinking water reporting and also the resource consent reporting going forward, and that's been a really interesting project to be involved in. It's very close to completion for the consenting side, just a few more bits and pieces to iron out. So I'm happy to leave that, to take any questions about the projects, if you have any at this stage.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil. Any questions for Phil on the projects? Councillor Councillor Lennox, sorry.
Thank you. Cheers, Phil. Just around the youth hub, great to see the progress. It's awesome. Do we have a finite date-ish around completion for that, please?
Yeah, so the work's supposed to be on site, as I say, this week. I actually don't have a date for all the works being completed because we are still dealing with some contracts to be signed up for the final installation of the services. We're still working through that with our providers, but we should be done by the end of the year, I would hope, but I haven't written that date in because I don't have it finalised as yet.
Okay.
We are working with some suppliers are providing us labour, materials at cost or free of charge, which changes the contractual relationship a little bit. But we are working our way through that at the moment.
Yeah. So we could say this side of Christmas.
I would absolutely hope that was the case. As I said, the physical buildings are in there. It's really just connection to services and then the fit out, and we are talking to suppliers for that.
And just secondary question, does the budget include some security cameras down at the skate park?
I don't believe it does. No, not unless it's changed. It does.
No, it doesn't. So there'll be no security cameras down at the park?
I understand there are some cameras on a network which are across the road by the supermarket, which I'm sorry, I'm not au fait with the details of the security cameras. We could look that up though and see if there's a possibility to reprogram those.
Cool, thank you.
Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, I'm just really disappointed to hear that it's end of the year when we were talking end of October. So,
Yeah, I think I might know a little bit more about this. Sorry, Phil. I think we did say before the school holidays started.
no, the last report had actually said end of October, because I said would it be in Labour weekend, and was told it would be the week after. So there's a big difference between end of
I think that's quite realistic.
Okay.
End of October, I think that's quite realistic. And just in regards to the cameras, we're looking okay in terms of actual versus budget. So if there is funding available before the project's closed out, we can have a look at that as an option.
Yeah, my comment there was just the feedback I received. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time about the skate park, but just amongst that skate park community is that there's been talk about the need for security cameras for a long time, and it just makes sense that if we can bundle this all together with the current project, that would make sense. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, mate. Any further questions for Phil? Councillor Goodwin?
I'm not sure if it's you, Phil, or the Rodin in the...
What's next?
I'm happy to get Kane to answer any rating questions.
Okay.
That'll be...
I'll wait. Sorry.
Thank you. No further questions for Phil. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, councillors.
Oh, yes, please, Gary.
Oh, sorry,
Councillor.
Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Gary. Phil, just as you're, with the appointment of the consultant around the demolition of the town hall, is there a time frame for when you think that whole process is likely to be carried out?
Thank you, councillor.
In terms of the actual demolition?
So at the moment we're just working through the regulatory consents, in particular putting together the resource consent application. The actual consenting process may be the hardest to define. It depends a bit on what happens with the resource consent. I can't give you an exact date, however once we have the resource consent application prepared and ready to lodge, we'll have a far better understanding of what the timeline is from there, councillor.
Thanks, Phil. I'm just concerned about the thousands of people who were in the Save the Town Hall process last time and their actual well-being.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor.
Any further questions for Phil? No further questions. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Worship.
Right, okay.
Kia ora. I'll try and get closer to the mic this time. Kitchener Street, so I'll just highlight a few things in the report that I'd like to highlight. Kitchener Street upgrade's almost complete, so it should be opening this week, that road. Kiwi Rail have set out to improve all the level crossings across Masterton, so that's underway, expected to be finished in 2025, excluding Judges Road, which we're still working through with Kiwi Rail. At the moment, the estimate for that is over $4 million, so there's problems there. We've started conducting a stormwater resilience project on all the sort of high-risk sites on Cyclone Gabrielle. We hope to get some good work out of that to try and figure out how we can build resilience into those parts of the network and protect them into the future. Going forward on emergency works, we've finished the Tanui Valley Road slip at about the 5 kilometre mark, so that's been repaired and replaced by realigning the road. We're monitoring about 74 sites at the moment, though, that haven't yet encroached into the road but were damaged during the cyclone, so still a number of sites that we've got monitoring. And we've got 4 retaining structures under construction now on Masterton and Cass Point Road, currently underway in parallel with each other, so that's well underway. For roading renewals, we're just finishing the plans for designs for the Shears surfacing, and they've already started doing the pre-repairs. You'll see I've got a graph there on some of the statistics, so there's a couple of statistics there that I'd like to just quickly highlight. One's the potholes, so 262 potholes versus 125 of the average 3-month, which is a lot to do with weather, and some of it's to do with our assets deteriorating faster than we think they should be. There's a lot of logging activity on the road at the moment that's probably accelerating that, and also unsealed networks struggling a bit with all the weather that it's had. It's taken away a lot of the shape of the road and some of the aggregates, so we're working through solutions there. Some of the dispatches this month had increased by 502 compared to 396 for the last 3 months, so that's sort of reflecting the amount of work that we're getting in through the month as well. It's increased a lot. So in summary, progress is getting made across all the fronts, but we're monitoring a few risks like budget. We're getting pressure from our contractor for rates reviews. I expect those to be coming through probably in the next month, so that's one area, but also asset deterioration, and obviously we're always monitoring the weather because that's quite a risk too. So
Okay, questions for Kane. First, Bex. Oh, we've got a few here, Kane. You're going to be a busy man.
Hey Kane, thanks for your report. Just wondered if you could give us an update on Masterton, given that Wakakotahi have significantly reduced their subsidy.
Well, it's more than significantly. They've actually zero funded our improvement activity class. So I'm briefing, trying to do a report now to brief you, I think in October, how we should move forward in that sort of space around the improvement activities for safety and for the resilience ones that we included for Masterton. We have still got Tim Beveridge, who's got 6 rip-rap rock walls that are getting constructed right now on Masterton, and we've done others. So we still are fixing bits and pieces that have got to the point where they've encroached into the road and we need to intervene, and that's getting funded through Gabrielle still, emergency works. And we've got a piece of the road down the end that's non-existent that we're still working through a consent with regional council. It's quite complex, so I'm still working through the consenting process with GW on that. And that will be covered by Gabrielle funding as well once we get to a point where we've got a solution with a consent.
That's the one opposite what they call the Craypot?
The power pad, it's called, yeah. It's right down the end where the river meets Masterton Road.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Lennox?
Yes, thank you, Kane. Just a query around the remedial work. Is that going to include my Church Street and Colombo Road reseal?
Most definitely.
Cool. Thank you. Yours?
Yeah, they've got a...
Yeah, my little baby.
Yeah, they've got a person coming down to make sure it's done right too from their national branch, Higgins as well, so they're very mindful that they need to get it right. Yep.
Thank you. The community of the area will be very appreciative.
Any other questions? Councillor Holmes?
Well, mine was to do with the seal too, Kane. is the cost of the redo on the contractor?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it's a rework. Yeah.
And why is it? It seems to be the ceiling. It's not only Masterton. I've been around a bit lately, and there's other areas in New Zealand are the same. And it seems to be the seal. Is that the problem? The asphalt?
Yeah, there's probably a number of variations that can happen that can cause the chip to strip. Can be not getting the rollers on quick enough to get them embedded. They can mess up their adhesion agents and the dilutants when they mix it up as well, get it wrong. But yeah, there could be dust in the chip that doesn't let it adhere. So they haven't been able to pinpoint it down directly, but yeah, we'll make sure that it's fixed and resolved at the contractor's cost.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Helena?
Thanks, Kate. I'm just really interested in your perspective, really. We seem to have reduced central government funding for our roading. In our roading space, we have an increasing number of climate issues impacting on our roads. We have talked about a greater number of forestry trucks damaging our road and creating a resurgence of potholes. Just wondering, at some stage, could you put a bit of a paper together around the significant risks our district's facing in terms of roading and footpaths and what they might be? Is that possible, in layman's terms, from your perspective?
Yeah, I can highlight those risks for you more clearly. Yeah, that's no problem.
Any further questions? Councillor Goodwin?
Are we on target to hit those NZTA targets of 9% renewals and 2%, the ones I mean?
It's 2% for rehabilitation, which is where you strip the complete pavement out and rebuild a whole new road. 2% of the network's roughly, so we've got about 500 kilometres of sealed network. So if we're just talking sealed, it's roughly 10 kilometres per year. No, we're not for that. We're not anywhere near it. Sometimes we don't quite make 1% at the current budget. For reseals, we aim between 5 to 7% for resealing, so it's just putting down the chip or AC, and we currently get close to 5 roughly-ish, so we don't get the top end, and that's around 35 kilometres. So no, we're not making the 9% either, so that will put it well above what we're able to achieve currently.
When I look at the letter to come from NZTA about our reduced funding and the references to that, I think that if you're going to come back and report to us, as Tom asked, there's some issues raised in that of why you're funding. I'm curious to know why they declined our application. They simply said, this part of it is declined.
Yeah.
And also it did jump out at me, and it is in our asset management plan about that 2%, 9%, and I don't know how they work. If we're not achieving that, does that possibly encourage them to not treat us so well? I don't know. There's so much money involved that it would be useful, I think, to discuss that letter to you and the issues Tom raised. But sometimes so.
I think I can cover some of those in the report that I'm drafting for your October meeting. Certainly address the improvements funding that we've got zero funding in, and the risk to the roading KPIs that the Minister's expecting from us.
And can you tell me, I haven't seen the term before, sorry, what's a Higgins dispatches?
So we call when a customer or a community member rings up the council, it's a service request. When that service request gets generated into a job for Higgins, it's called a dispatch. whether the dispatch is created from an engineer or Higgins itself or the community. It's just a dispatch in our asset system, so like a job created by the contractor.
So it's in response to community?
Yeah, it could be the community, it could be us picking up jobs as engineers, or it could even be the contractor just picking them up. Yeah.
And in the maintenance and operations, you talk about the unsealed roads deteriorating on some routes and the increase in logging truck numbers. I mean, again, that's not necessarily expecting, but it sort of it's painting a grim picture with reduced funding and increased trucks.
We walk a fine line between what I can afford to do and managing a network that is behind, I think, and is struggling not only with inflation to cost of doing things, but with a network that wasn't built for some of the weights that the trucks carry now.
And I suppose what you do to respond to that is prioritisation.
Yeah, level of service prioritisation and concentrate on that sort of prioritisation process. But at the same time, you get a minor road, you with one person at the end, you've still got to fix it to some extent to get the vehicle through, so there's a minimum threshold.
Thank you. It'd be fair to say, Kane, would it, that this is something that's happening all over New Zealand. This is not just centred on Masterton, is it?
Yeah, so no local authority, unless it was really high on the benefit criteria, got any funding for improvements. Everyone got their funding cut for footpaths and walking and cycling and safety. And the government's focus is on roads of national significance and building highways, and they need to fund that through reductions in other areas. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Goodman?
Yeah, I remember vividly, and I suspect David Holmes would too, back in about 2004, the CE telling us that we should enjoy the holiday we're in with funding on roading, because one day the metropolitans are going to take it off us because they've been underfunded for so long, and I presume that's we've been in that for a little while now. That day has come. I remember that so vividly.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Any further questions for Kane? Thank you, Kane. Who comes next?
I do.
Yes.
Oh, I'm Steve.
Hey, Steve.
Morena, again. So I'm going to talk to the utilities paper, and I will take it as being read. A couple of, before I do that actually, I've just checked the program for the Youth Hub, and the completion date is 14th of October.
Yay. Thank you.
So just in regard to the utility space, so we're in that phase of contracting work out, preparing tender documents and doing design across a number of CapEx projects. We are watching carefully the situation at the Homebush treatment plant with the bubble in the pond. So that's been drained down and we've had an inspection, and now we're actually just looking into the commercials around the warranty on that repair. But that will be a high priority over the next sort of 4 to 8 weeks, because we need to have that ready for summer. In terms of the solid waste, I'm starting to get under the hood on that a little bit more. So the project team, the regional project team, they've outlined the projects, and I believe they've kind of been endorsed. We have a set of sub-regional, which are our local projects, and these are the ones that I actually need to spend a bit more time in understanding the detail of those projects, the purpose, scope and so forth. So I'll be working with Councillor Helena on that in the coming weeks. The water meter project, So we have the policy which is in draft, and we are just currently framing up what the financial model might look like. And we've started some chatter, well, there has been a bit of chatter in the community around this, so we will put a structure around how we launch and start talking about the policy. I'm just mindful of the timing. Don't want to start talking about what's in the policy until that has come to you all and then we're ready for the consultation. But I believe at this point at the very latest, we will go out for consultation around mid-November. And at that point, we won't have all the meters in, but we'll have the majority of residential meters. We also have an unplanned project which we will divert some of our CapEx into, and that is to install a couple of zone meters. So that will help us understand where the leaks are. So we'll have the meters on the residential homes, so we can identify what percentage potentially is private leaks, but then if we can isolate some zones so we can see how much is going in, then the difference between what's being used and what's going in is losses somewhere in the network. So at the moment we can't do that. So that is another piece of work that we'll start pushing into. I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, question from us, Councillor Levens.
Just around the tier and the liner.
Yes.
Pond. Are we at any risk of that causing any environmental issues around leakage into the soil or anything like that?
That's a really good question, and we haven't determined that yet, but that is something that we definitely need to be across.
Cool. Will we get informed of that accordingly?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Questions? Councillor Home, thank you, Councillor.
With regards to the leak, Mayors, it is in Pond 3, isn't it? 2A?
It's 2...
2A.
Oh, 1B.
Oh, so it is...
Oh, full knows about that.
It's a non-treatment. It's not treated. If it had been in 3, it wouldn't have been cleared.
Thank you.
No, it's
Councillor Woodward.
The insufficient budget to finish or advance the water meters install, is that not something that, because I mean, I would have thought we need as many as possible by the time we roll it out. Can we not, I don't know, loan fund it or something to advance that? Why would that hold us up?
Well, it's not going to hold us up from actually rolling out the policy or changing our rating method or revenue method.
No, but surely, we should make every effort to, if we're at 93% now, if we can get to 97%, is better.
Well, if that is something that you would like us to look into, I certainly will. I was adopting the approach that will run it through the next annual plan.
I think also some of the hold-up is the policy, because we need to access some properties to be able to install meters on properties with multiple supply. So there is a little bit of hold-up there. The remaining balance are the tricky installs. It's
Is
not
that
really
property one, is our access covered by bylaws, like I think it is in sewerage?
Yeah, it's more how we measure. You may have one meter going into a small subdivision, so, which might be a private road or whatever. We need to work out, or I suppose get the appropriate permissions to be able to go onto the private properties to do those installs. So.
Good point. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Maz. I just wanted to check, initially when we spoke about water meters, we were going to have an amnesty period when they were first started so that people could get used to being able to read their usage and the invoices and before charging was applied. Is that still the plan? Because that's what we've told our community.
Yeah, I think we would have to, that will need to feature in the policy.
Yeah, I just want to make, because we've got Kings, and so it's just really important that we spoke about that with our community. We would do that first.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Any further questions from us? years. We'll wait. Okay, so we got Councillor Johnson.
And just a point which I'm sure you're across, but I've been asked to check anyway. I bumped into the owner of the departmental building and subway buildings, and he asked me to just make sure council know there's a live sewer line that runs on the vacant section beside the library, which we're going to develop, and that feeds to his buildings and the subway building and around there, but he just doesn't want to lose that when we dig down.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tudor.
Thank you, Liz. Will charging start before we get 100% connection?
Yes, but it won't be, the change in the model won't roll out unless you've got a meter. So, and I haven't got across the detail on that yet with David Paris, but it's likely that we will have, you'll have a certain amount per day you can use, and if you go over that, then you are charged. But for the properties that don't have a meter, it's likely to be the current rating model. And once you do get a meter, it will then transition to the new charging regime.
Any further questions from that? Councillor Helena? Time for comments or? No, we'll wait till after Ian's done his report, obviously. Okay, thank you, Matt. Mr. Osler.
Tēnā koutou. I'm here to cover off the Facilities and Open Spaces report, which I'll take as read. I guess a couple of things that I'd like to cover off as some examples of some really good collaborative work that's been happening across the spaces. So one is obviously the exercise dog park at Hendy Lake. So I want to claw back some credit. So there was some good work with the Masterton and Masterton South lines, Rotary, I apologise, for the work that went into creating that space. So they came to us with the idea, and then we've obviously worked along with them, and there's also been some work with Terry around making sure that it's set up in a safe way with clear instruction as to what's good and bad behaviour and what's expected of the space. So that's one of those joint projects that's come to fruition. The Motu Warika stream. So we had a really good engagement hui at Motu Warika Marae, and as a result of that hui, we went out and explored the actual reserve area with the local hapu and iwi representatives, and we sort of learnt about an urapa that has probably been forgotten about. So there was a couple of things in that space which were probably not appropriate, so we were able to act quickly and resolve those and get them out. But the marae opened up, so community representatives from the Residents Association and the community plan group were all there, so it was a really good collaborative meeting, and it's also triggered the need for us to consider archaeological services in case there's any koiwi to engage with over through the works in the future. And the last one is the Henley Lake Playground. So that's another example where community have got right in behind that project, and so Lansdowne Residents Association, Henley Trust and the Waipua Masterton Host Lions have all committed to some financial contribution, which has enabled us to enhance what's going to be delivered. So that'll be another good positive project, which is another good collaborative community initiative. So,
questions? Questions, Councillor Johnson.
Thanks. Excuse me. Thanks, Oz. Just a few questions. One is you mentioned about possibility on suites at Morley Park, and just wondering, will a business case be coming back to us with demand and costs once that's work's completed?
Yes. So we'll work through the Section 79 workshop this afternoon, later this morning, but part of, I guess, the future for Morley Park, we'll be looking at what does the park need to progress and advance, and it's pivoted over the last sort of 12 months from there was a demand for power supplied sites, and that seems to have pivoted, so there's more of a demand towards ensuite cabin type, motel type accommodation, which is why we've gone through this exercise of exploring, is it feasible? So yes, we can do it, and so now we're going through the pricing process to see what the actual impact will be to, one, complete the construction work, and two, what is the actual
return on investment?
Yeah, return on investment.
Okay, that's great. The other thing is, I noticed there's a couple of comments on painting and upgrades of a couple of our rural halls.
Yes.
And I know that we've got a piece of work that's on the list for looking at our assets.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering when that work might be done.
So we're working on that now. We're going to bring a paper to your wall in November.
Great. Thank you.
Right, further questions for Ian? Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much.
Kia ora.
Now I'll ask that somebody move that we receive this report. Thanks to Councillor Luna, seconded. Councillor Bowyer, now open for discussion. Any discussion? Councillor Bowyer.
I'd just like to say, Maz, great report, great thing. Really pleased to see we're going to start isolating some zones around town as far as water delivery. I think very quickly you'll get a handle on where it's really going, and I'm really pleased to see that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bowyer, Councillor Helena.
Yeah, just to thank you, Maz, for your reporting. Just want to acknowledge you for a couple of things. You know, your intended desire to make sure all decisions are based on data analysis and evidence, and truly applaud that. But what I really like around your reporting format, there's a frankness to it, which not only brings us the positives that you're progressing, but also the challenges that us councillors need to consider in our decision making. So if you can keep that coming, it would be much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Lena. Councillor Lennox.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment around the, not marketing, but the information we share with our community around the meters. I sort of feel like, policy or no policy, surely we could just start talking about it from a council perspective and getting it out to the community that they are existent and they're coming, and watch the space, because there is a lot of negative chat within the community of misinformed information that people are getting. So I feel like we can nip that in the bud earlier than later and start sort of educating people now. I know that we have to abide by the rules of policy and whatnot, but we can still start talking about the reality that they're coming. Just a thought.
Thank you, Councillor Dennings. Any further comments? Okay, I'll put the motion that the report be received. Moved by Councillor Lena, seconded by Councillor Bowyer. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Carried. One is page 304, Strategy, Policy and Governance Activity Report. Karen's not here, so Tania. How many you got with you, Tania?
About 5. So, kia ora everyone. We will be taking the same approach as others, so I'll kick off, and then we'll have Josie, I think we've got Matt and Kylie and Steph, and Harriet at the end. So the aspect that I just wanted to focus on is around the strategy policy teamwork program. So we have done some work over the last month or so, looking at our work program, looking at the resourcing that we have, the capacity that we have within our team, and have pulled together the work program that we've shared with you for information here. So that has also taken into consideration things like Wellington Regional Leadership Committee projects and where they're at and how they're progressing and their timelines. Things, the sequencing of work, for example, we felt doing the spatial plan might help inform some of the other projects that are coming later, for example, the sports strategy. So that's all covered in the document that's attached to this report, just for information for you so you can get a feel for what we will be focusing on. Obviously that is a living document, so as things update or progress, we will keep working on updating and progressing that as well. Point 2, we've just noted there, some of the policies and strategies that have been deprioritised. That reflects some of the conversations that we've had through the last sort of 12, 18 months as we've been working through the LTP process. Implementation plans for our climate action plan and our corporate emissions reduction plan. We're also working on a sort of interim implementation plans that will take us through to approximately end of next year. We have got a broader review of both of those plans scheduled for year 2. So we'll be looking at that in year 2. So that's probably the key points around the work program. Other than that, I'll take the report as read, and just so that everyone doesn't have to keep saying that, the rest of our team will too, and just highlight a couple of points from each of their sections.
Any questions for Tania? Okay, who's next, Tania?
We have Josie next.
Josie.
Kia ora. So I have 3 main points for corporate planning. The first is fantastic news. We won the Super Engage Award at the LGNZ Super Local Conference for our LTV consultation. So if you haven't already, now's a great opportunity to practice your little victory dance because it was a great win. So congratulations everyone, well done. My second point is related to the annual report, as already updated in today's meeting. That's progressing well. And my final point is just around the annual plan. Planning's underway with that also, and that's also progressing well.
Thank you, Josie. That's
You're welcome.
positive stuff. Any questions for Josie? Thank you, Josie.
I might update Josie. Hasn't got been updated with the finance team's news, and that we are not progressing as well as we would like in our completion of the annual report for the auditors. We're in discussion with the auditors around delaying their arrival on site and a 2-week delay in the adoption of the report. So we will be targeting the 13th of November for the adoption of the annual report.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions? Okay. Who's next, Tania?
We have Matt.
Matt.
Kia ora. Not too much from me today, so there's quite a fulsome Infometrics update in there. Unsurprisingly, the picture economically probably isn't that rosy. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple of quarters as interest rate changes start to filter through. One of the things is, interestingly, that our consumer spending is down 0.4%, and that's compared to a growth nationally of 1.2%. So it'll be interesting to look further in the data to find out why that has happened specifically in Masterton, what is causing that fall. There's some positive notes on some of the more social indicators, the decrease in crime, the rise in public housing stock and less people in emergency housing, and also the increase in school attendance. So some positive signs despite some of the weaker economic indicators. On the Panama land project, at the moment it says we've got a paper coming in October. That might be slightly delayed. I met with Te Whatuora yesterday. We have to be in contact with them because they were the previous holders of the land before we took on the land, and we're just going to be working through some of their questions. So I'll be working with Sonia first to see if we can answer those in-house before we seek any further advice from Simpson Grierson. And just in the dark sky space, work's continuing on that around other work that we're doing, working with the Dark Skies Association on just getting things pulled together for a bit of an information week coming in October. Other dates there, 7th to the 13th, just working out whether to run them on those dates or push it out by a week. Carterton have grabbed Space Week and are running that as like a big event for them, so it's just how we work in with other councils in our region. And in that economic space, actually, South Wairarapa District Council have got a new person working in that space, Rob, and he's got a really good background from his time in Auckland, and he's really helping energise that economic development space with the partnerships with Wellington NZ and Destination Wairarapa and Business Wairarapa, so we're going to hopefully see a bit of momentum in that space over the coming months.
Right, questions for Matt? No questions for Matt. Thank you very much, Matt. And we go to
Kylie.
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 Kylie, oh sorry. Kylie.
Hello, I'm Kylie, I'm the Environment Lead. A couple of highlights from the Environment section. We have included the submission to MFE on the second emissions reduction plan that we did, and we've included some anecdotes and photos from some of the successful projects that received funding from the Council Community Climate Fund. Does anyone have any questions?
All right, any questions for Kylie?
So this is under the environmental climate. Right.
Yeah.
I've got a question. So I see under better off funding projects, we've still got 2 projects reasonably outstanding. Where are we at with that and how are we looking to progress these at a pace? Or
I'll pass to Tanya.
Yeah, I can respond to that. So we're currently working, there's 2 projects, there's the Manawhenua Climate Project and there's also the Eco Corridors Project, which was previously known as Biodiversity and Fish Passages. So we've got project plans in place and we're progressing with those projects. Manawhenua are leading on the climate change project. Our team is leading on the Eco Corridors Fish Passage project. So we are going to do a more full update. Iwi are due to report back to us at the end of September, so we will provide a fuller update for a future council meeting.
Yeah, sure.
So, might be wrong. So I think the initial funding was 330,000, whatever it was. How far through this are we, and is there going to be actually anything left over to do the project?
Yeah, we're still, the funding that was allocated for the actual delivery of the project. So there was 200k for the Better Off funding for the Fish Passages project. And top of head, there was more and it was reduced back, but it's around about 300,000 for the Manawhenua project. So there are plans in place. We are working towards delivering a climate conference towards the end of the year, and so that funding is working with that. There's also project plans in place with a number of work streams that are being progressed through iwi under that funding.
Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Goodwin.
Point 23, the transport accounting for 18% of the greenhouse gas. Is that, just to query, the schemes will likely encourage more people to take public and active transport. Is that active transport, is that the likes of footpaths?
Yeah, footpaths, cycles, anything that gets the heart rate up.
That's fine.
Okay, any further questions for Type Kylie? Thank you, Kylie. Thank you so much. The group, is it?
Stephanie?
Ah, Steph.
Keep it very brief. So just a brief update from the policy team. I mean, our main focus has been on the local alcohol policy, which you've already considered and supported through the consultation today. We're also progressing our review of the Waiapa Consolidated Bylaws, so that one is going through the Waiapa Policy Working Group. We have had an initial meeting with them, and we've just wrapped up our preliminary engagement with our key stakeholders, and we're now drafting amended bylaws and a statement of proposal. We're going through a legal review, and we will be bringing the Waiapa Policy Working Group back together to consider those. And then other areas of focus are as outlined in the work program. So we'll be providing some support to the water meter charging, as well as kicking off a review of our dog policy and bylaw as well, which will be expected to have consultation early next year.
Thank you. Any questions for Steph? Thank you, Steph. Thank you so much. And Harriet, last but not least.
Again, just very briefly, you'll see we've provided a bit more information in the Lagoima reporting. So we'll provide just a high-level summary of requests that are in progress, requests that have been completed since the last report, and just an update on timeframes. So, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Harriet.
Thanks.
Right, somebody prepared to move that we receive the Strategy, Policy and Governance Activity Report? Move Councillor Byers, seconded Councillor Goodwin. Any discussion? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. In there's an update on our application to the High Court regarding Panama housing, and then it says next steps in a discussion will come back to council. One of the things I did want to stress, though, that I hope that we look at different options, not just whether we sell and who we sell to, because at the moment ratepayers subsidise the social housing that we have, and also ratepayers subsidise central government for social housing. So effectively we're paying twice, and I just want to know that possibly consideration of either a CHIP managing our properties or a different model would be considered as well, because then the ratepayers wouldn't have to subsidise our housing, and also new tenants could qualify for income rent-related subsidy if our social housing properties were managed by a CHIP. So I just would like assurance that we're going to turn it inside out and look at all the possibilities.
So I could talk to the first point. So coming back to you is essentially to close the loop. Nothing in this process has been straightforward. Obviously, council's already indicated they would like us to go forward considering a sale or lease. Under the Local Government Act, now that the High Court's made a decision, we just have to come back and close the loop. So what we're doing is just squaring things away with Health New Zealand at the moment. I think Kim can probably speak to the other stuff, but I would think that we would come to you, get that bit closed, and then look at what we do in the bigger picture. Obviously, one of the factors is we've just covered the vacant land at Panama, so anything we want to do at the where the housing is now would be subject to the High Court, but that shouldn't limit what we look at.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm losing my voice, so we'll certainly come back with some options. I think there are multiple different scenarios we could look at there. We could look at public-private partnerships. We could look at anything really around working with a CHIP to develop that area. We could also look at selling it. So there's many different options. I'll come back to you on that. So we'll have
I just think we need to have an open mind.
Yep.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Lennox?
Discussion.
Discussion.
Yes, sorry. I just want to thank you, Harriet, for including my LGOIA request for more information. It's appreciated.
Thank you. Okay, I'll put the motion that moved by Councillor Bowyer, seconded by Councillor Goodwin, that we receive the Strategic Policy and Governance Activity Report. All in favour say aye. Aye. Against? And could I just say to thank all the staff that have been involved in those reports. I actually personally think it's great to get all the different voices and to actually see the people who do the real work while the senior managers look over them. So it's... Okay, we go to page 328, the Chief Executive's report.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report here is a little bit lighter than normal because simply a large amount of my time and Maz's time has been spent on local audits done well and meeting our regional our neighbours. So there's a significant amount. You'll have a decision point in October, which I think is on the 30th of October, where we will need to decide whether or not we continue with the Greater Wellington region or whether we partner separately to that. So that will come through to the council at that meeting. Another area I'm quite pleased about, and I sleep a lot better at night, is around the emergency management, where that area is fully resourced now. We did have a gap some time ago, and we were having to utilise staff from different areas to ensure that there was appropriate cover over the 24/7 time frame. So that there is good now. We have a good two teams, and we have a number of trained controllers. Excuse my voice, including Oz, who's just left in Osland. So it's sorry, Oz. So very good there in that space. It's probably about it. Regional deals is another area where we're focusing on, and in particular, I suppose, the government's announcement that they will invite regions to have a conversation. And I suppose with that, we need to determine what's a region. Is region a town, or is it the Wairarapa, or is it the Greater Wellington region? So there are some things we need to work through in that space too. There's a meeting that I'm going to on Friday. I think it's on Friday, online on that. So hopefully we've got a few things top of mind of what we could look at with this area around either water storage. We could look at things around our civil defence, wire to house. Potentially that's a wire at the emergency operations centre, so there could be potentially some funding there. But I think that's something, as soon as we're invited, I'd love to get a few ideas from council as to what they think is something that meets all the criteria too. So that's probably my summary there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
questions or discussion all in one go here. Could I just mention after Kim, I was actually in a meeting myself, a Zoom meeting yesterday with the regional deals with seemed like most of the mayors in New Zealand were on the call, and there was like about 150 questions as to how this thing's going to work. And Kim, you pointed out there about where the regions start and stop was a very big question, and there was a lot of actually criticism of the way the thing's been put out with all the detail, and it was interesting, and it'll be interesting to see, Kim, at your meeting, the three people who are actually running the meeting often couldn't answer the questions. So, yeah, there's a fair bit of work to do in that space yet. Okay, any further questions? Any questions for Kim? Yeah, get you up.
Hi, thank you. Do you want me to stand up? No. Okay, so around the regional deals now, I was involved right at the start with the Wellington Regional Council discussions around regional deals, and the chair of the regional council and of the regional leadership group went over to the UK to have a look at regional deals. So, they were mooting back then that we should do it as a Wellington region. Are you suggesting that we should do it as a Wairarapa region? Is that what you're suggesting?
I would strongly support a Wairarapa region. Yeah, absolutely. We could look collectively, but we would need to have something in common there with the Greater Wellington region that's going to, I suppose, benefit our district also. However, if we're not selected as a preferred region, we would support Wellington, I suppose, if there was, if that was the direction that was going to go down. But I think we should bat hard for ourselves in the Wairarapa. Absolutely.
So my second query, I guess, is so during that time that we were in those meetings, I was advocating for a Wairarapa regional deal, and it seemed at that time that we were kind of like getting jumped into the slide. So I would support a Wairarapa regional deal. That can be done. I'm just not sure whether the ministers across there would.
I think what probably needs to be put out to maybe some of you don't realise there's going to be 5 deals. It's only going to be 5 deals in the first tranche over the whole of the country, and it became very clear that either meeting was at that everybody was saying, well, how are you going to pick who's who? They talked about that the ministers would actually have quite a say in that. And then somebody asked the question, well, will they be going out and going to the various regions and talking to those regions? And it didn't seem like that was going to happen. So there is a lot of questions. I must admit, I come away pretty disillusioned really about how it was being put out there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Kim thinks when he was. Okay, any further? Somebody move that we receive Kim's report. I'll move that. Seconded. Councillor Gordon, all in favour? You? Do we have any councillors' reports? We didn't have any on the agenda. Anybody got a councillor? Yes, Councillor Goodwin.
I went to the Upper Ruamahanga group meeting last night.
Thank you, staff.
Thank you. And yeah, that was a good meeting. They are lamenting a wee bit the absence of someone from Masterton, but since David Hockman left. But yeah, that considerable risk we face, which they emphasised, is one of the small number of towns in New Zealand that face quite high flood risk. It's certainly a major project of major influence. The talk of, 1 in 100-year flood, drowning 3,600 properties. So, but they are working away, and they are focusing, whilst they're looking at the whole catchment, they are certainly having an initial focus on Masterton manager. And look, I don't know that much about the group, but it's been going for some years, and they seem to be making reasonably good progress. And I don't think there'll be any ratepayers in Masterton unhappy to support whatever the final plan is to protect us from those potential massive floods.
Councillor Goodwin. Any other reporting there? Okay, we'll go on to my verbal report. I was going to start it with a bit of a sing-song about the Welcoming Week initiatives, the Cultural Festival and co, and I think we've done that pretty well. One thing I would mention, and I know Councillor Goodwin was there, I know Robin was there, I know Marama was there, at the Human Library event at the library, which had 5 panellists talking about why they come to Masterton and their background. This is people from overseas countries, and it was really. I found the part that I wasn't able to stay for a lot of it. Found it really interesting, and it was just great to hear stories of people coming to Masterton and really enjoying their life here. So that was tremendous. Just recently, I had a Mayor's Task Force for Youth to Work meeting. The good news there is that there's an uptick in youth employment in the Wairarapa, and most of those jobs are coming in Masterton. More businesses now seem to be looking to increase staff, and through REAP, the Youth to Work concept has proved to be a really excellent marketing tool. I really want to pay a tribute actually to the REAP staff for the manner in which they keep in touch with those new to employment and ensure that they're coping well in that employment. They don't just get people jobs, they actually keep in touch with them and their employers and make sure that those jobs are working out. So I think after a bit of a lull in the employment situation for the youth employment, it's actually picking up, which is good to see. Relationships between the council, the Lands Trust and Trust House, we've had more meetings there between the three of us. The relationship's really continuing to grow. I think all three organisations are wanting better collaboration, and it's really working out well. These meetings are informal, but they're proving to be very productive with each of the organisations being really open and frank about the position they're in and working and what challenges they have and how we can work together in the future. So that's been really good, and I really need to. Kim's not here, but I'd like to thank Kim for the way that he's gone about progressing those things with the Lands Trust and Trust House, and we're seeing now a really improvement in the relationships.
Does the chair of Masterton Trust Lands Trust attend those meetings?
To be honest, she's only been there once. But John Prendergast has been there all the time. We also here at Council, we regularly host what's a group called the Wairarapa Leadership Group, which is not only the Council and Trust House and Lands Trust, but also all of the social service organisations, including health, police and education, and iwi. And at our last meeting we had a comprehensive look, along with a report from Te Whara Ora on the current state of the health services in Wairarapa. It's a really pretty sobering report, but if anybody wants to read it, it's here to read. The prime objective is to hope that this report is to stir interest in what is required to bring doctors and other key medical staff to our region. Bex was at that meeting as well. We also looked in depth at that meeting at Trust House's housing strategy, which is set to make a huge impact on the social housing situation here in Masterton. They're doing a great job there. And we also had a report from police on a project which is aiming to lessen the amount of child abuse in of family harm in the district. So that meeting was, those meetings are not for decision or anything, but it just gets a group of people who are involved right at the ground floor of these organisations, and it's extremely worthwhile. And finally, I just, we've had a hell of a lot of meetings but in the last 2 months, but this Monday the three mayors met in Cardigan, and we had a really good straight up chat with Mike Patrick over a number of issues which involve central government decision making and what it means for us councils. The Judge Road rail situation was right at the top of my list, and we're not trying to see if the government would come up for funding. Mike did say that in their latest, in that the fund they've got out now, there is a possibility that it will be part of that, but there's no guarantees. After that, we met with the region's emergency management team to talk through what's happening in that field, and a lot of focus there was on a region-wide exercise to be held on November 7, and that'll be here. Masterton will be very much a part of that. And then we had our own mayoral forum where a lot of the discussion centred around the iwi relationships within our three councils and how they could be enhanced. Robin was there and his input was absolutely tremendous. I know Joe had an apology, but we're certainly keen to lean on Joe as well. One of the things that's been really good this week is that Kim and I met with the new, as I said, the new boss of, I think it's the Ngāti Kanunu Trust, Robin, it's the settlement.
Our CEO.
And one of the things that come out of that is that we're actually going to look to meet with both Ngāti Kanunu and Rangatani on the same basis as we meet with Trust House and Lands Trust, an informal meeting, sit around the table and have a discussion so that we can just build our relationships with iwi. And and I was also going to mention the regional deals, which I've already met. I wasn't terribly impressed with what I heard there, but however, going forward that might improve. So that's my report. I'll move that we receive that report unless there's any discussion. Any seconder? Seconder David, thank you. All in favour? Okay, we'll now go into, we'll now take a 5-minute break and go into public. I've got a move to go into public exclusion. Move to Councillor Holmes.
You can't move your own report.
Oh, yes. Move Councillor Leonard then. Second to Councillor Lennox. Thank you. And would somebody move we go into public exclusion? Move Councillor Holmes, seconded Councillor Tudor. All in favour? Aye. Thank you.